Today I want to talk about narrative theses and narrative introductions. These are all from the articles that we read. And what I want you to see is that there is a lot of variation in all of these. So when you go to write yours, it can be in any voice, in any style that you want. So let's take a look at this one. This one is from Who Shall I Be? Our guiding principle is the fresh start, our foundation, the big move, and nothing seduces like the promise of a clean slate. That one is almost poetic in the way that it sounds. And so that one it's short, it's sweet, but it's written in a way that's more poetic. We wouldn't actually speak like this to our friends, but it's written in that kind of style. This one is from Classroom in the Wider Culture. It says, in this paper, I will try to describe and explore this experience of reconciling my Chinese identity dictated by the rules of English composition. This one, much more formal. And he goes on, he kind of sets this one up, and he also goes on to explain it a little bit more. But that's the core of what he is talking about there. This one is from Teacher Who Changed My Life. The person who set the course of my life in the new land I entered as a war refugee, who in fact nearly dragged me onto the path that would bring all the blessings I've received in America, was a salty-tongued, no-nonsense school teacher named Marjorie Hurd. So this one uses dashes, you can see here and here, to kind of create a certain style. It's a longer sentence. This is just one sentence, but it's longer. And it has this little insert in between those two dashes. That's kind of like an aside. And it's also got some interesting wording. So salty-tongued, no-nonsense school teacher named Marjorie Hurd. So that creates a little bit of interest. This is the details that we were talking about before. And it's nice, and it's also just very straightforward. The person who set the course of my life in the new land I entered as a war refugee. So we know what this is going to be about right from the beginning. This is a story about a teacher who changed someone's life. So straightforward, but not written in a traditional way. So it makes it more interesting. Here is shitty first drafts. Now, practically even better news than that of short assignments is the idea of shitty first drafts. All good writers write them. This is how they end up with good second drafts and terrific third drafts. So this one is 3 short sentences. So this is a slightly different style too. Also much more casual in the way that the wording is, so shitty and that kind of thing. Then here we have some call the Persian Gulf War the most efficiently executed war in history. But my impression is that there was a great difference between the war presented by the media to the American people and the war experienced by me and my fellow Marines. Perhaps my recollections will lend some perspective to the news from Somalia. So this one is setting up a misperception. So he's saying that the way that the media portrays war is not actually what it's like. And because he's been there and he's experienced it personally, he's going to kind of set the record straight and explain what it's really like. So that's what he's doing there. And then last here, culture is made by those in power, men. Males make the rules and laws, women transmit them. Very, very strong language here and very strong statement. So that's the way that Gloria Anzaldúa is. This is the way that she writes, but it's a very, very, it's almost like a controversial, very strong statement here. So not so much controversial, it's just strong in the way that she's saying it. So those are just some examples, but those are, so when you go to write your thesis, you just want to make sure that it has a core theme, a core direction, and a purpose. All narratives need to have that kind of purpose. All right, so now we're going to look at these narrative introductions, and we can see here that they are in varying lengths. This one is very, very short, just a very, very short 3 sentences. Classroom in the Wider Culture, if you remember, he sets up his ideology from when he grew up in China, and then he transitions and talks about the problem that he had when he came to America because it was completely different from what he had learned in China. Shitty First Drafts is very, very long because she is a comedic writer and she is doing a lot of explaining and and describing and all that kind of stuff in here. She also uses extremely long sentences separated by semicolons. So long sentences, extremely descriptive, funny, so much longer, different style here. The Teacher Who Changed My Life is very, very straightforward and to the point, but uses some very descriptive language in here with words we don't normally see. A Marine at War, we already saw this one. This is just setting up the misperception here. And then Cultural Tyranny here is using two different languages, which you can absolutely do if you want to. She italicizes the words so that we know that they're in a different language, and then she translates them here, just so that the reader can understand it. So all of those totally up for grabs, or anything else you want to do. Both of these are on Canvas, so take a look at both. And the personal narrative is very, very open, and I like to start with this in our class because I want you to get away from this sort of structure, which is very, very necessary in high school, but there's sort of the 5-paragraph structure that gives you a very strong foundation, which you need. But now I want you to break away from that a little bit and have a little bit of fun with this, and tell your story the way that you want to tell it, so you have some freedom here.